Okay, look here. Today the book we're reading is called Moustache. This is a moose, and here's his mustache. The author is Margie Palatini. She's the person that wrote the book, and the illustrator is Henry Cole. Henry drew the pictures. There's some pretty cool pictures inside here. All right, here we go. Moustache. That's a lot of hair. Moose had a problem, a horrible, hairy, prickly problem. It grew right below his nostrils and just above his upper lip. A moustache. Now, not a few spare hairs or shy little stubble. No mere weak wandering whiskers on the upper lip of this moose. No sirree. Moose had a big, bushy, bristly, mighty moustache. But a moustache that was burly, surly, a big, mangy mess. And it itched a lot. Sure, he plucked and he tweezed. He even clipped, snipped, and teased. But his combs were still cowards, and his brushes rebelled. His scissors simply surrendered. Sorry. Moose was in a frizzy tizzy. The moustache was completely crimping his style. He was a great hoofer, but he could barely bop and hip-hop with the moustache going flip-flop. That's crazy. Look how long it is. He was a wonderful chef, but he simply could not flambe his souffle with all those whiskers in the way. And he was a daring skier, but how could he downhill race with the mighty moustache blowing in his face? Moose had to do something, and soon. But what? After days and days of much serious thought, Moose had an idea. He crossed some hair here and he crossed some hair there. He tied his moustache around his neck. A moose scarf seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect. He got another idea. He parted some hair this way, he parted some hair that way, and he heaped all that moustache on top of his head. Moustachioed antlers seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect, until a squadron of squirrels and one very nosy gopher moved right into the Moose Motel. They huddled and hoarded, furrowed in and burrowed out. Needless to say, it became quite crowded up there on Moose's head, and heavy and messy. And it was very, very noisy. The squirrely chitting and chatting, squeals and squawks woke Moose up every morning before the crack of dawn. And that gopher was giving the moose one hairy headache. Moose needed his sleep. He needed his rest. He needed his privacy. Moustached antlers? Nuts, said Moose. So he unparted and unpiled, untwisted and untwined, and said adios to the hairy horns. Bye-bye. But now what? What? The miserable moose took hold of a hunk of hair and he wrestled it. Then he roped it, he tethered and tied and tamed. Aha! A moose tail. Now that was so simple and so easy. That was not so perfectly perfect. Look. Talk about a dizzy-do. Moose didn't know if he was coming or going. Backward? Forward? This way? That? He didn't know which end was which. Moose had to bail on the tail. And so he thought, and he thought, and thought some more, but no other idea was a worthy winner. Braids were the bother. A moustache sweater? Too sweltering. Net? Not. Poor Moose. His problem was truly terrible, unbearable, and just downright sad. He felt so all alone and he didn't know what else to do. Of course, Moose had to ask. Whoopsies. But then, call it fate, call it destiny, it was probably dumb luck. But one day, Moose tripped on his moustache and just had no time to duck. Oomph! Pardon me, they said as they bumped. And they blinked and they stared and their hearts went thump, thump. Uh-oh. She was a moose with a bouffant so bodacious, so outrageous. Well, it was just plain old big. Hair after hair piled higher than high, a skyscraping dew of glorious curls, a tower of swirling twists and twirls. She was simply splendid, stupendous, and absolutely superb. Of course, Moose had to ask how she did what she did to get such a great dew. Moose winked and then whispered, just a little glue. So she helped. He fearlessly plunged a hoof into a fat pot of the white gooey goop, and carefully, oh so carefully, they glopped and they plopped, they pasted and pressed, they coaxed and curled every truly unruly wayward whisker. Around and around they tweaked and twirled those horrible hairs until Moose's once mangy mess was now a wondrous wave of marvelous moustache. Moose gazed in the mirror and smiled a broad, moosey smile. He was so happy, so glad, just giddy with glee. He looked dashing and handsome. Moose gushed, is that really me? With not a care for one hair, the moose pair boogied and bopped, and their cooking was hot, hot, hot. So, of course, it wasn't long after that Moose and his moustache and his beautiful bride fox-trotted and tangoed and waltzed down the aisle. Good hair days, bad hair days, they vowed to love and to cherish, and with hearts heaped with love and pots filled with goop, they both sighed, I do, glue, and promised never to part. The end. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect, and it stuck. The end. Oh, it looks like they had a baby moose.